Matt Gertz is a senior fellow at Media Matters, and he wrote a really terrific article, The Right-Wing Ecosystem That Created the Paul Pelosi Conspiracy Theory. Thanks for joining our show.
Thanks so much for having me.
What are the conspiracies that the right is peddling about the attack on Paul Pelosi?
Well, there's one main conspiracy theory. They are claiming that the assailant and Paul Pelosi were actually gay lovers, and that the violent assault on Paul Pelosi was a sort of lover's spat. There's basically no evidence for this whatsoever. What they've done, as they usually do, is they've taken a small handful of facts and sort of spun them up into a wild fantasy in order to undermine, I think, the very pressing concern about violent right-wing extremism.
This took a strange turn to me. I mean, they've been rather vile with some of these right-wing media, but this was a direct attack on the Speaker of the House and her family because she wasn't there. And to see Don Jr. making jokes about this, and even the governor of Virginia, who was supposed to be a moderate, making light of this. We're going to send Pelosi back to San Francisco, he said. Is it even descending further than it has in the past? Because this even looks worse than usual. I mean, they're not even contrite about this or even pretending to be sorry about it.
Yeah, it's pretty grotesque. I mean, I think at this point, what they've all decided is that when a story like this happens, the potential damage to the Republican Party is pretty substantial because the right-wing media and Republican politicians have pushed a lot of the same conspiracy theories that this attacker was apparently obsessed with. And so rather than grapple with that in any real way, but rather than consider the possibility that what they're doing is quite dangerous, that it is leading to these sorts of violent attacks, rather than trying to cast the extremists and the conspiracy theorists out of the Republican Party, what they've decided to do is to try to turn a story about a man who committed political violence because he was obsessed with right-wing conspiracy theories into one of those right-wing conspiracy theories.
I want to debunk one of those theories that they're putting forth, and that he was left-wing. And even somebody I knew for many years commented on my Facebook and said, oh, he wasn't on the right. This was someone who was a left-wing gay person who went to a nudist colony. He wasn't right-wing at all. I mean, obviously that doesn't comport with the facts.
There's a reason we talk about it as online right-wing radicalization, though. It's because these conspiracy theories have a way of taking people from wherever they initially are in their political views to somewhere far more dark and extreme. And if you spend any time on this guy's website, as I did on Friday after his name was released, it becomes quite clear what he was interested in. The two websites that he maintained are a hodgepodge of QAnon, of Pizzagate conspiracy theories, Gamergate is in there, virulent attacks on Black people, on trans people, on Jews. I mean, it's really the latest and greatest right-wing hit list of paranoid conspiracy theories. It's not difficult to figure out where he was coming from. And, you know, when the federal government filed charges against him on Monday, a complaint said that he had told the San Francisco police that he was deliberately targeting Nancy Pelosi because she's the leader of the evil Democratic Party. They're trying very hard to create an alternative narrative because the direction that the facts point is very, very bad for them. And they've decided that this is what they want to do with it.
Right. And it's interesting. You use the word narrative. And Gateway Pundit wrote, the Pelosi narrative is being concocted in the back rooms and halls that house the powerful elites. It seems a lot of projection here. There is no narrative. There are facts. A man who was adhering to right-wing lies and was essentially radicalized went and broke in to their house looking for Nancy Pelosi. She wasn't there, and he attacked her husband. Those are the facts. It's not a narrative. The ones creating the narrative in back rooms and halls, which are, their offices, and are also including powerful elites. And I mentioned a couple of them, like the governor of Virginia and the former, the son of the former president, Don Jr. I mean, it's actually what they're doing, and they're projecting that onto liberals.
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk was one of the people pushing this out. I mean, this is just really ugly stuff that's coming completely out of left field by people who really want to confuse the discussion, to toss as much dirt into the air as possible so people don't stay focused on what actually happened.
You mentioned Elon Musk, and I didn't have much regard for him to begin with, but whatever shard of respect I had for him disappeared when he quoted the Santa Monica Observer, which is a right-wing hack newspaper that once claimed that Hillary Clinton was dead when she ran for president in 2016, which of course would have made her even more impressive, had considering a dead person beat Donald Trump by 5 million votes. But as an organization that monitors the media, how alarmed are you that Elon Musk, who just bought Twitter, lacks the critical thinking skills to conduct the most basic check on sources before he tweets?
I think the people that should be worried about this are the advertisers on Twitter, who are going to have to deal with the fact that the person who they are having business and relationships with is interested in creating a right-wing conspiracy theory fever swamp like this. I don't think that's going to be good for business for Elon Musk, and he needs to make a lot of money off of Twitter in order to pay back the people who helped him buy that company. So I think that he's going to have a rude awakening at some point in the near future, that either he needs to drastically change the way he's behaving on Twitter, which won't be a lot of fun for him, or he's going to be in some serious financial difficulties.
Yeah, we have seen these conspiracy theories over and over again. What is the process, how this goes from the fringes to the mainstream? You described it very well in your article, The Right-Wing Ecosystem That Created the Paul Pelosi Conspiracy Theory. Elaborate on that a little bit. How does it go from the fever swamp to Fox News?
Sure. So, I mean, the right has built this infrastructure of conspiracy theories for decades, dating back to the likes of the claims that Vince Foster, the White House aide, had been murdered by the Clintons back in the early 90s. But the internet really allowed them to be much more deliberate and precise with the way they operate. And here's how it works. There's this wide range of right-wing message boards. There are social media pundits and trolls and people who basically spend a lot of their time trying to come up with these sorts of conspiracy theories. It's a bottom-up system with a huge number of individuals spending very little time just sort of trying to turn up some stuff, some raw materials that can become a conspiracy theory. From there are hyper-partisan websites like the Santa Monica Observer that don't really have any journalistic standards, but are willing to merge together what they see on these social platforms and message boards and turn them into something that looks kind of like a news story, enough like one for someone like Elon Musk to tweet out. From there, the conversation tends to move up through the food chain from smaller right-wing sites to bigger and bigger players. The conspiracy theory might change a little bit. You'll see people who have airs of being somehow more credible adopt more of a, I'm just asking questions about some discrepancies in this story, without necessarily saying, "Oh, this is we know that Paul Pelosi and this guy were lovers." Others will go that far. People like Dinesh D'Souza don't have those sorts of airs, and they'll just say whatever the conspiracy theory is and kind of run with it. It moves up the food chain until it reaches Fox News. And they're not willing to espouse the conspiracy theory. What they're going to do, though, is give their viewers a sort of permission slip. They will tell them there are a lot of questions here. You're not crazy to think that there's something else going on. We need more information. We need more information to be released by the law enforcement or by the Pelosi people. And if we don't get it, it makes sense for us to be suspicious.
But that's another aspect of it. The people themselves, their followers, they have been so conditioned. First, they say the mainstream media is fake news and you can't trust it. You can only trust us. And then they go to a point where they condition people to look at anything that happens and say, well, okay, that's how it's reported. What's the real story? And then they say, we're doing research, and they put on their internet sleuth hats, and we're gonna break this political puzzle, this Rubik's cube. We're going to find out what the real truth is, and then they go off and look for it, and look under every rock, and keep finding really nothing, but they spin it into something. I mean, that really is the essence of QAnon, isn't it? I mean, what Q say, and then they look for clues, and it's like a whole lifestyle that they've been conditioned to, and that it's almost like brainwashing.
Yeah, so what you've got is a situation where the audience wants the conspiracy theories. The audience has been told that they can't trust any information from the mainstream press. So the debunkings that myself or others on the left and the center will write about these conspiracy theories will never reach them. And the people who they do trust, people like Tucker Carlson and others in the right-wing press, either are pushing the conspiracy theories directly or they are refusing to knock them down.
And we saw Alex Jones, and he was just sued, and he lost. He had to pay $1 billion to the parents of Sandy Hook because he said that their children weren't really killed; that it was all staged, and this whole Sandy Hook thing was they were crisis actors, and it was staged. He really got slammed here. Do you think that made any impact? Because it doesn't seem like it did on the right, given how they're handling the Pelosi conspiracy theories. It made no difference to them.
I think it does keep it at sort of a the level that I talked about, where they're raising questions, but they're not willing to go all the way out there. You don't see them espousing the conspiracy theory in its entirety, because that would leave them in a legally questionable place where they could end up getting sued for a lot of money. So we'll sort of see how this develops. I think it was a good sign that Alex Jones was required to pay a large sum of money. It takes a long time, though, for the wheels of justice to turn on something like that. And so, outlets like Fox News, which are currently dealing with huge lawsuits related to their 2020 election coverage, could see a similar situation unfolding in the months and years to come from those lawsuits. But I think it's too early to tell if that's going to have a real impact on the behavior that these people espouse.
They're doing a lot of propaganda on puppet masters pulling the strings behind the scenes. And of course, that comes back a lot to the Jews when they say this and their conspiracy theories with anti-Semitism. And we've seen this huge uptick in anti-Semitism I don't think I've ever seen in my lifetime. How does that play into it? And what have you seen at Media Matters in terms of more anti-Semitism on the right?
I think that it's quite a lot of the same situation. What I tend to see from people like Tucker Carlson and others at Fox News is, again, this sort of nodding and winking at the conspiracy theory. If you really, at the sort of 30,000 foot level, Tucker Carlson's show is about a cabal of global elites who have control of the U.S. media and political system and corporate entities, and are using that power to destroy Western civilization and to import lots of immigrants to change the culture. So he basically has the entire anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. He just doesn't mention the Jews specifically. What that does is it means that he can win over support from white nationalists, from neo-Nazis, which, as I've been reporting for years, he has a huge following in those circles because they know that he is bringing their talking points to a huge audience.
How have these conspiracy theories impacted the midterms?
The biggest impact I think we're going to see is that because these conspiracy theories have become so intertwined with the Republican Party, they're going to end up electing a lot of people who believe some really abhorrent things. We already have a couple of QAnon members of Congress. I think we'll have more after this cycle ends. Not necessarily because they'll, because the Republicans will be so successful altogether, just because, they'll replace other Republicans who might have been somewhat saner. I mean, the party is getting more and more extreme as time goes by, and I think headed in a really dark direction.
It's hard to believe it keeps getting worse, but every time I think it's hit the nadir, it gets worse. And some of that's social media. And Media Matters found that the Pelosi conspiracy theories were spreading on social media, including YouTube. What must social media companies do to stop spreading dangerous conspiracy theories and lies? Because they keep promising that something is going to be done, and yet they keep disseminating this information and destabilizing this country, quite frankly, because they don't have their act together.
I mean, I think they have put together standards and codes that people who post on their websites are supposed to be following, but they very rarely actually force people to follow through on that. And I mean, I think that's sending the country in a pretty dark direction. They have standards, they should stick to them.
I think one thing that surprised me a little bit, how silent some of Nancy Pelosi's colleagues were. I mean, these are her coworkers, even if they're on the Republican side. And they either were quiet about it or encouraged what happened to her family. And that is sending a very strong signal that this is acceptable. And I think a lot of people, especially those who are unstable, are going to hear that. What does it mean when the people who are supposed to be the adults in the room are encouraging these lies? I mean, this can't end well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Joe Biden said it quite well. When one party is talking about stolen elections, about COVID being a hoax, some people who are mentally unbalanced will believe them and sort of pursue the villains that they are told are out to get them.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is Exhibit A. I mean,
Absolutely. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Carrie Lake. There's an expanding list. People who are at the least willing to push and promote these conspiracy theories, and at the most actually believe them.
Is there anything else you'd like to add on the proliferation of conspiracy theories on the right and how it's impacting our society?
Well, it's a process that was set in motion a long time ago and is moving closer and closer to some really dangerous results. We've already had the sacking of the U.S. Capitol by Trumpists who believed the conspiracy theory that the election had been stolen from him. And it doesn't seem like the Republican Party took that to heart in any real way. In fact, the conspiracy theorists have only gained more power within that party since that happened.
Well, I want to thank you for all of your hard work monitoring the right wing and their conspiracies. I think it's safe to say that you'll never be out of a job the way this is going, but your work is very much needed, and we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.